Welcome, everyone. I'm John Wuorinen, the Director of Admissions here at Columbus Academy, Director of Admissions and Tuition Assistance here at Columbus Academy. Today's Zoom at noon, we have with us Todd Martin and Luke Howard, who are two of our Makerspace kings, and they're here to share just a little bit about S.T.E.A.M with you. Remember a couple things, please. This is one of a series that we have going at the Academy from our admissions office to make sure that you get as much information as you need. We've already had topics. Our head of school, Melissa Soderberg, talked about what an independent school is. We've had a discussion about college counseling. So we've got lots of different things coming up. I'll talk about those at the end, but right now, I'd like to welcome to the admissions office Luke and Todd. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll talk a little S.T.E.A.M.
Sure. Todd Martin. I've been here taught here for 15 years as a middle school science teacher, and currently the technology integration specialist and manage the makerspaces. I have three children that attend here in first grade, fifth grade, and eighth grade.
So I'm Luke Howard. I am the middle school STEAM teacher. I teach 7th and 8th grade STEAM. I came here from another makerspace called the Idea Foundry here in Columbus. So all the makerspace stuff was really secondhand to me by the time I got here, and love teaching 7th and 8th graders.
Great. Sorry, I had to close the window. Keep the noise down. So tell us a little bit about the makerspaces here. Both of you can chime in. It used to be computer labs that were big in schools, and then computers ended up being actually in the classroom. Describe, if you would, we've got a few different makerspaces here at the school.
Sure. The space we actually initiated in part of the science room. There's actually one of the first things we got was a 3D printer in the science room and incorporated into our classrooms. And then through one of our building projects here, we actually expanded and added a middle school space, which then expanded also to an upper school space. And then this year we've also added a lower school makerspace with a whole plethora of tools. And talk about some of the tools we might have.
Yeah, so I mean, we were just talking about them before. We started with a single 3D printer. Now we have 14 3D printers that seem to be always running and going. And we just brought in a brand new laser. So with the 3 spaces we have lasers in multiples of those spaces now. And those tools are just great for the kids because they really get them going, doing really cool, interesting projects using software and computers. And after laser can build, paint, do all that kind of fun stuff. And full wood shop. So again, coming from another makerspace, the resources we have here are really, really impressive and really help the kids make some cool things.
What are the routers?
Right. To multiple CNC machines for
CNC
for cutting into wood and acrylics. Also vinyl cutters. We have now 4 vinyl cutters in school making like stickers, or kids are making iron-ons for shirts. We make temporary tattoos for like sports teams, or like bag tags. Also have a full set of electronics and soldering tools, robotics, spheros, Lego Mindstorms, and the list goes on and on.
So talk a little bit about the progression, if you would. Columbus Academy is actually a 15-grade school, starting as early as Explorers. The Explorers probably aren't using the soldering irons yet, but but how does the progression look from lower school to middle school and then on to upper school? Sure.
In the middle school, kind of the on-ramp ends up being like design challenges where kids are building with more like craft type tools, whereas popsicle sticks, hot glue guns, paper clips, and they maybe have to build a tower or build a boat. Getting to Lego challenges, and then eventually we introduce cardboard with cutting tools to do cardboard mazes or King's Arcade kind of stuff, arcade style games, and then adding more higher end Lego tools with adding motors and servos, and then also now in 4th and 5th grade we'll be introduced to software, CAD designing, and like usually Tinkercad to design for the 3D printers, which then moves on to middle school, where once again the progression goes on to what are some of the things we do in middle school.
Yeah, so I mean, just one of those things is we keep saying acronyms like CNC and CAD. CAD is computer aided design. So just computers helping us do things. We're in the 21st century, might as well have the computers help us make cool things. Which is, yeah, in 7th grade, one of the cool projects we do is they learn it. They've already kind of started learning Tinkercad, but then they learn it further and design their own flashlights, 3D print their own flashlights. So they're learning CAD, learning 3D printers, and then they solder all the electronics together to make a flashlight work. So a simple electronics project, but using all the tools to make a flashlight that is a take-home type of project. So we focus. That's an example of using Tinkercad, laser cutter, or sorry, CNC machines, and soldering equipment all in one. And do a couple projects like that in middle school.
Cool. So in upper school, I'm not the expert here, but we have a makerspace that doesn't have the big power tools, but has lots of other things. When I'm giving tours, there are often boys and girls in there. They are doing their own thing. Can you guys talk about that? I mean,
So
I'm throwing you a softball.
yeah, thank you. So by the end of 8th grade, our goal is to introduce all the kids to how all the tools work, whether it's our tools with the vinyl cutters or laser cutting, 3D printing, woodworking tools, and the design process. The big key, the big thread all the way through school is the design process, iteration, problem solving, making things that they can incorporate service, or making gifts for other people in the school, making something for their classroom or their advisor. Maybe their advisor has a problem that there's nowhere to keep things on their desk. They design a desk organizer for their advisor, or design something for our older kids, designing things for our younger kids, for example. And then in upper school, now that the kids have been exposed to all these tools, they will come back as part of their class, or even part of one of a club they might be in, and come back to the space knowing these tools exist and how to use them, and come back in a room and just say, hey, I need to make ... fill the blank. They need to make something for the play. They want to make something to present during club fair. And so they know the tools exist, they know how to use them, and then they're making that thing it's not necessarily for a grade, and they're doing it because they're intellectually curious, and they want to make something usually for something outside themselves. As we get into the higher grades, robotics takes place in physics class, and then there's an Arduino course currently offered as an elective for juniors and seniors. Yeah. But all along that process, sometimes an entire class, so like the whole freshman history class would come and do a project on, let's say, the world religions. So that they come to the Makerspace to design something for their project on world religions. It allows them to kind of think outside the box and not just do what might be a typical like trifold poster presentation, or just put together a keynote or a PowerPoint for the project. Like, oh, what if I actually made something interactive, or made something 3-dimensional that actually represented this, that I can, a set piece that I could discuss while I'm talking about the world religion that I studied.
One of my favorite days giving a tour. It was pre-COVID, because the students in 8th grade were going to Washington, D.C. And part of that experience was their a kind of an interdisciplinary program, and they were supposed to produce, or they were supposed to decide on a new monument for Washington, D.C. And so they had to do some pre-research, figuring out what wasn't there, and then think about American history, think about United States history, and what ought to be recognized. I remember walking in, and there were kids who were doing, making all sorts of different things using printers and using, CAD. Someone was using what's the video game that kids play with? Minecraft. Sorry, my kids were a little older, so they missed Minecraft. But again, all sorts of different things. Many students were partnered up, and there was one that I just loved. So they had to write a position paper why this ought to be a new monument for their language arts class, do the research for the social studies class, and then do kind of the printing or creation as part of the Makerspace. And anyway, one student had gold boxing gloves for Muhammad Ali. And then anyways, it was terrific.
That's a great example of once we've introduced the kids to the actual skill set and software and the actual how the tools run in general, Then once they get a project anywhere in the school, or just even an idea, they'll then come back and kind of try to find the right tool for the job, which in some cases, it might just be all digital, like you said, Minecraft. And another kid might want me to 3D print this part of my project, but 3D printing is not the solution to all things. So then it will be, oh, what if you made the base out of wood? Or what if we made this out of foam? You can actually end up being material science and mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and design engineering, and certainly in the art, all on top, all in one big, under the umbrella of that project.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead. Oh, no, please.
I was just gonna say, to add to that, this is my 3rd year, so I came in and Todd already got these spaces started and going. And so while we have a lower school, middle school, and upper school dedicated spaces, one of the things I always thought was really nice that Todd created here was that these spaces are resources for the students. So whether it's a senior and they come back into the middle school makerspace to get something done, because that happens to be where the tool is, and that happens to be where one of us is at the time. So the kids just know these are resources, and it's not like middle school makerspace, I don't want to go in there because I'm a senior or something like that. It's just resources for the school. They're abundant to the kids, like Todd just said. Once they know how to use them, then they know the resources are there for them, and they just use whatever they can.
A couple years ago, there was a senior project did a roller coaster. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a so that project we actually offer. It's called Classworks, but it's a project in the upper school where students that are just interested in anything outside of their class can actually get some funding put behind the materials to work on something that they're passionate about. In other schools, they may call it like a passion project. And so this student loved roller coasters, and he had this vision of making a working roller coaster, a scale model of a roller coaster. And he designed it in this CAD program called SolidWorks from scratch, and then 3D printed the pieces roughly 8 to 9 inches out of time. When he was done, the overall roller coaster was over 87 feet long. He started building it in the makerspace, and it outgrew the space. The first hill was over 9 feet tall, and just kept adding piece. He made all the framework out of PVC, and then made bases out of wood, and then made train cars and modeled it, and eventually we set it up in the loft in our art gallery. And he actually graduated before his vision was to have it actually fully running, but it ended up being just a great display piece. And then eventually I had to take it down.
He's, I think, engineering at maybe Rose Home.
Could be. I don't remember school. He comes back and visits fairly often. Talks about the project all the time. It actually wants to do that for a living. Wants to be like amusement park engineer.
Isn't that great? So is there any union or intersection between the maker spaces and coding that goes on?
I guess once again, the on-ramp, like I said, the on-ramp for design challenges in lower school is also the on-ramp is like coding in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, where they're doing that as a set class, their technology class that they have. And then when they come into middle school, between myself, Luke, and another teacher, we actually teach like the Makerspace class, the S.T.E.A.M class, and a coding class. So in 7th and 8th grade, the students will take all 3, both doing kind of like game design and Sphero coding, and like using Scratch and Hopscotch in their coding class, which then, as it gets older, I think we tend to try to integrate the electronics piece and having kids. But we were just talking recently about getting projects where kids are coding for a purpose. So you can code, you can go through a whole program there's a program called Swift that the kids use, or through code.org, and work through and code on the screen. But what if we can actually code a device or design something, have the kids make a lamp, and then have them create the code to have the lamp come on and off and change different colors depending on who wants to work. Things like that. We're giving them a reason to actually work through the code. And maybe you could talk about some of the new the sensors that we brought in.
Oh, yeah, one of the things that we just brought in for the kids to really get them to see this, interact with it, and see this coding and Arduino type of stuff is just really fun and tangible. There's this thing called Bear Conductive, and with electronic paint, you can make circuits and lines wherever you want and code different sounds. And so in the library right now, we have the whole circuit board where you just touch things, and with the conductive paint, there's a whole bunch of gears on it now, and you touch the gears and they make any sound that you want. And so you can just go by this wall at any time. And now we're making interactive walls. And you can make interactive poster boards with this. And so it just unlocks, again, another opportunity for kids to see any wall, any space, any object as something to play with, make sounds and interact with. It's not just a curriculum and part of their schooling, but just having fun and expanding their minds.
Well, you mentioned Scratch, and I can't let that go without mentioning that our lead computer science instructor in the high school, in the upper school, is a guy named David Feinberg, who went to MIT, and he's one of the co-authors of Scratch. And so as we move around, about 40% of our upper school students each year take an elective computer science program, computer science class. And these are not user classes. These are coding classes. And proudly, the admissions director talks about the fact that Ohio had about between, I think it was right around 1,100 computer science APs taken in the state. So the state of Ohio total about something around 1,100. And I believe we had 43 of those tests here. So Columbus Academy, one single high school, had 4% of, roughly 4% of the computer science APs taken right here. So coding's pretty, pretty popular around here. Talk a little bit more about Classworks, if you would.
Sure. So that's a program open up to any students. It's actually open up to students in the second half of 8th grade all the way through upper school, where they can just submit a proposal to something that they want to do that they're passionate about. It might be an extension of something we've done in class, or just something that they're inspired by from pop culture, or something that they do in their spare time. One of the first ones was a motorized longboard, skateboard the students made. We brought in all the electronics, figured out how to make the gear system, then had to come to the middle school Makerspace and 3D print like the housing unit for that. The roller coaster was another one.
By the way, that skateboard went about 20 miles an hour. It was frightening.
And so what's it opens is up, kids will just submit. Some kids have designed apps. Some students built a VR computer that's currently in our tech office with a full headset and code for that.
And so if one person applies, they have this little pot of money, but
so if like the three of us, so like we have a project and we look at the project and what it's going to cost, like, hey, let's all work together, and then so the school will support all three of us together as a group. Another group of students, they were some students worked on drones. We have some drones here at school, and they wanted to have the drones to go around and they take aerial shots of the school. And then others were like, they were inspired by the drones. Like, well, what if we made a drone that was a submarine? So they actually wanted to make an underwater drone that they had visions of going and having it kind of looking with a camera, looking through some of the waterways and estuaries around central Ohio. Do all these projects see it all the way through? No. Sometimes their kids will get stuck on something, or they bit off more than they can chew. But it's the idea, the design process, the iteration. The thing they end up making usually isn't exactly what they originally thought of, or they end up learning. They're trying to do something that they don't totally know how to do yet. And that's what I think of our favorite thing. We love when kids walk into Makerspace and say, "I want to do this, but I don't know how to do it." And like, well, let's figure it out. And sometimes we're like, we don't either.
Yeah.
we have an idea, we've seen that before, but we've never done it, so let's try it. And to actually learn with the students as well, and they see that we're trying to design and figure things out and troubleshoot and fail faster. Like, let's if we're gonna make a mistake, let's make the mistake on the front end and get and try to think intelligently through this and come up with a solution, and often end up with something that's better than they thought they were going to make, or completely different than they thought they were going to make.
And that doesn't just happen in those kind of projects, but it happens oftentimes when a student is in ceramics. For example, last year a student in ceramics brought us a guitar body and a neck of a guitar. And so it was like, I don't know how to make the rest of this guitar body. And I don't think either Todd and I had made one either from scratch. So we helped this ceramics student during the ceramics time in the Makerspace to help bring that project together that he put into a gallery at the end of the year. And same with like a Latin teacher coming up to us and wanting to make multiple things from ancient Roman times. And again, neither of us are ancient Roman experts, but we said, yeah, we can help figure it out. And so in their Latin classes, they get to do projects, and we're a helpful resource there too. And we could go on and on of the different classes that come in, and we help solve those problems, and the kids work on solving the problems. And it's a cool way to use the space in a unique form.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the ways that this all has evolved. You know, my example of computer science, or we used to have computer labs, and you know, it would be kind of a separate pullout. And we still need the special spaces to house all the gear and the equipment, but there's been a real evolution that these things are, you know, we're not just writing papers,
Right.
And you know, like you say, take the poster board and make it interactive.
I think one of the big changes too is since we've gone one-to-one with iPads, the students are walking into the room with their device, right? They're carrying their own computer lab under their arm. And so they come in, and so they have a lot of times they'll have an app, or we're going to do projects that are kind of iPad friendly. So you can use an app where they can do most of the design on that. But then we also have laptop carts all around the school. So kids will sometimes, if they need more robust software or trying to do something more advanced, then they'll jump on this. They actually, once again, using the right tool for the job. I can design on my portable device, but if I really need to run the CNC machine or run the laser, I'm going to go on a laptop and open up and actually run the software for that tool. And the kids just know that I need this for this type of project, I need this for that type of project. And you know, it's custom to whatever the project is, or whatever the kids or the age group of the kids.
Cool.
Which I think is a great underlying thing about what we do, and what Todd and I like to focus on a lot. And it's a good takeaway of this school, is that the kids learn how to do it themselves. And so our goal is that like they are becoming self-sufficient. They know, hey, I know I need to use this software for this tool. I know that this tool is not right. So they're learning that thought process. And we think that's a huge part of what we do. So it's not just, I'm learning this tool, it's learning how and why.
I remember a few years ago, it might have been before your time, but when fidget spinners were big.
Yes.
And there were kids who came into the Makerspace, and they started designing fidget spinners, and then lo and behold, they would sell them to their classmates.
Might have required us to have a policy change. We love your initiative, but that actually didn't be a great project, because they were once again trying to solve they saw a need, that people were interested in these things. They knew how to use the tool. They were pretty good at measuring and come up with some cool designs. And then that could have been great. It's like if they would just made them with our school resources, and like, you know, gave one to each kid in the grade, like that was ideal. They decided maybe you're gonna give me $3 for this.
Yeah.
But that's also those types of projects where once you have that, you give that initial thing that gets the kids excited about something, and then you're tricking them into learning. Like I said, nowhere in our curriculum, but whatever grade, from third grade to seniors, we don't have a thing where we go through chapter 2 and chapter 3, and we're progressing through. We give them a project or an idea, or get kind of hook that the curiosity with them, and then it goes in whatever direction the kids want to take it. And so we may be trying to get them to use a certain software, use a certain tool, but within there, we try to give them as much leeway as we can to actually come up with whatever outcome that they get inspired to do.
Last year, I think it was the 8th grade, had a mini golf project. Can you guys talk about that, and what's this year's 8th grade project? I'd love to hear.
So yeah, the mini golf project was sweet. I'm pretty sure it was Todd's idea. Just one day he came in and was like, hey, what do you think about making a mini golf course? So basically Todd and I, we built the blank mini golf course, and these were modular 2 foot by 4 foot systems that could be pieced together like a puzzle piece. And we had our 8th grade Makerspace and S.T.E.A.M class. They designed all the different features. So they created a theme. So there was a SpongeBob theme, a space theme, so on and so forth. And so they created the theme, and then they had to create obstacles, and we gave them design parameters. One, just the space itself, and then making a theme, and then also like, hey, it has to like be able to hit off things. It's got to have a bridge that either goes over or things that go under. So they had to design with these parameters, which is what you have to do in design. They had the freedom to figure out what theme that they wanted to do. And then they had to make it be able to withstand, multiple whacks of the ball. And what do you not think of? How does a third grader use it versus an eighth grader use it, and things like that. So it was a really cool, awesome project. And also a project that could always evolve. Okay, pieces broke, let's fix it and let's make something new. Oh, that idea, that theme ended up not being great. All right, let's make a new one. So you're failing fast, you're learning things different, and you're putting on a display for the entire school, and a different way to get kids engaged versus just a test. But like, hey, let's show this off to the whole school.
We actually had it, it was set up in the hallway up in the 8th grade and 7th grade hallway, and students would come, especially when third through 5th graders would stop by, like, oh, look at this one, look at that one. And they would be drawn to playing certain holes, and they would actually kind of avoid others. And that actually would be a nice process for the 8th graders. Like, why do you think the kids don't want to play this one? And they go, oh, it's kind of too boring, or it's too hard. Or they're just not drawn to that theme. So the next group of students that we have come through our class would be like, I think we need to change holes 3 and 6, because they don't seem to be getting that much playing time. And then the kids are like, oh, well, I have a better idea. And they one made theirs Indiana Jones, and one made theirs all the Greek mythology. One was there was one under the sea kind of theme that kept changing and evolving. Eventually, their initial idea, the last one, was fabulous with
shipwreck.
Treasure chest and skulls. It was really great.
And it used every single tool. We used laser cutters, painting, 3D printers, foam core building, just every possible tool could be used on a project like this. And again, it was a golf course project that just happened to use everything. So they learned new things. And maybe it was, last thing on that would be, they have an idea, have no idea how to get it done. So we walk through that and figure that kind of stuff out. The project, to answer the second part, the project this year is super fun. We have a lot of woods on the Academy campus.
231 acres.
Yes, and a lot of that is still awesome woodland area. And we have trails, but no trail signs yet. So the 8th graders have been put in charge of what should our trail signs look like? What should our trail names be? How should we make it and design it? And we're on second iteration of groups that are coming up with themes and ideas to make these trail signs. And actually, I just got an email from Bob Lee. He said, hey, we're going to have a meeting. Communications director. We're going to have a meeting with, I'm not quite sure, but we'll just say higher ups. Can I have the kids, can I have all the signs to bring to this meeting? And so again, the kids know that when they're designing where these are going, and they'll be dropped off for this meeting, all these signs that the 8th graders make, and hopefully we'll get to put them up this year.
That's terrific. What I like about both of the projects we've talked about is the fact that they are interactive and that they're helping out the whole school. Lots of times the lower schoolers would be up, doing the putt-putt golf and all that kind of stuff. It occurs to me that there's a connection with Tom DeVore and his physics class. He's got a senior elective physics class. And as I was walking through over the last few weeks, they're building, one of the classes is building robots for little cars for their kindergarten buddies. Each senior is connected with a kindergartner for the year. They get together a few times each year. They'll do paint pumpkins for Halloween. They're going to get together this week to talk about Thanksgiving, and they'll make some sort of turkey, whether it's the hand-drawn turkey or whether it's an apple with a whole bunch of things stuck in it that make it end up looking like a little bit of a turkey. So in any case, Tom DeVore's class went ahead and they are building little cars, little robots for their kindergarten buddies, and they have to have lights, they have to have sound, they have to have motion. That same class earlier put on a demonstration for the lower school about they called it the Force, and they built a hovercraft using a leaf blower. They put a bunch of dry ice or changed the temperature somehow with an aluminum can, and could kind of point to it, and it would then get crushed using dry ice to have a leaky faucet end up looking cool and interesting to the kids. So the fact that some of these things can bring the school together and excite the youngsters about what's coming up in their education, and also put some responsibility on the older kids, whether it's 8th graders or seniors, to be producing a little bit of fun and interest for the younger kids. It's a fabulous way to go.
Another quick example of that, the lower school added a Makerspace this year. So it's all brand new tables and chairs and tools and equipment down there. And we're actually, after winter break, going to have our middle school students in our S.T.E.A.M and design classes go down there and meet with the kids that have been using the room for the first semester and say, what do you think this room needs? Like, where do you think stuff should be? And so
cool.
Whether it's a new organization or caddies for the table or where stuff should be. We have nowhere to hang our safety glasses, or we don't know. It's hard to reach the Legos because they're too high on the shelf. Whatever the problems tend to be in that room, as we're just laying, this room's literally been up and functioning for 4 months. And then so our 8th graders will then try to design solutions for that. So whether it's caddies or shelves or whatever.
Cool. Okay. Nancy, do we have any questions in the chat? Ladies and gentlemen, if you would have any questions for our panel today, please go ahead and let us know. Anything in there?
No questions right now.
Okay. Well, if anyone wants to ask anything, no questions too odd, no questions too direct. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and just mention that coming up next week, we have performing arts Zoom at noon. The following week, it actually ties in a little bit to what we're talking about here. There is a Zoom at noon with Jennifer Conti, who is our Director of Internships and Outreach. And then the following week, we'll have a discussion of Academy Youth Sports. So sports going down into the lower school. And we can talk a little bit about sports in the middle school and upper school at the same time. But the idea, again, with all of these Zooms at noon is to give potential applicants, those of you out there who are interested in inquiring, some idea of our programs here at Columbus Academy. So we'll hope you will get involved. It is after 12:30. We want to be mindful of your time. Any questions? We'll stick around for another couple of seconds here while someone puts questions in the chat. Any other thoughts that you guys have in terms of the program? One question. Often, I think people may assume that there's a gender specific nature of STEAM. Many schools are seeing girls not as involved, perhaps boys. What would you guys say about that in terms of what you've seen at Columbus Academy?
Actually, when we came down here, we actually had to leave because we had a room full of girls that were working on projects, not for our class, from another class that spilled over the exact same thing you're talking about. And the other day it was actually upper school students. Same thing. They said, "Can we come in and work on here?" So I think because of the nature of our projects that are very open-ended, and when we tend to put kids in groups, that it allows people to bring a bit of themselves to the room and not feel intimidated by something they may not be comfortable doing, or that since someone may be really good with software or really good with measuring, and someone else is an excellent painter, and they're going to bring those skills together to make something. At the end, they both work together and say, "I made this," and it's they all have their part, and that gives them the confidence to then come back again and again and want to do. And a lot of the, I have some. When boys that might come and want to work on a project, sometimes they're very hands-on, but it tends to be our female students that come back more often to work on something outside of class and really dive deeper into things.
Yeah.
What I've seen.
I mean, and I would agree that, I guess to say 2 points would be, one, I work at and come from that other makerspace that I mentioned, the Idea Foundry. That's pretty much a boys club. So to fill into the typical stereotype, but I think that speaks to the type of the culture that was both here at S.T.E.A. and the type of culture that Todd started curating before I got here. And I know we talked a ton about when I first got here 3 years ago, and now I feel like it's just kind of second nature, so we don't talk about it as much. It's like, is that open-ended environment that's in the room that just is second nature. So now, no, I don't really see a difference. Boys are doing their thing and girls are doing their thing, and they're wildly different projects, but there's equal excitement from all the
Cool.
genders.
Cool. Okay. Nancy, any questions?
No,
Okay.
We did a good
Well,
job covering.
you guys did a great job. Luke, I really appreciate you coming in. Todd,
Thank you.
thanks so much for
Thank you.
your time.
Awesome.
And we hope to see you. We take next week off for Thanksgiving, and we'll be back shortly after with the performing arts here at Columbus Academy. So until next time, thanks so much.